International HRM and Domestic HRM, Module 5, Lecture 2. In this lecture, we will study about international HRM, few of the functions of international HRM, and how international HRM is different from domestic HRM. First of all, let us talk about few of the activities of international HRM. There are more HR activities to operate in an international environment. A human resource department must engage in a number of activities that would not be necessary in a domestic environment. Example of required international activities are international taxation, international relocation and orientation, administrative services for expatriates, host government relations, and language translation services. We will first look at few of the functions of international HRM. The first is recruitment and onboarding process. Attracting, hiring, and retaining a skilled workforce is perhaps the most basic and essential functions of human resource. There is good reason for this. Having a solid team of employees can raise the company's profile, help it to achieve profitability, and keep it running effectively and efficiently. There are several elements to this task, including developing a job description, interviewing candidates, making offers, and negotiating salaries and benefits. This becomes more complex in the international arena due to differences in education system from one country to the next and of course difference in languages and culture. Apart from this, HR also has to provide onboarding process for facilities and support to the expatriates. The second is training. The training function is amplified when the organization is running global operations in a number of different locations. Multiple sessions in numerous international locations may be called for, although online webinars and training tools can sometimes effectively reach anywhere in the globe. Having streamlined processes across all locations make communication and sharing of resources a much more manageable task. Apart from training on technical and managerial concepts, diversity training, language training, and training for family members also become very crucial in international HRM. Benefits and compensation. While the management of benefits and compensation is given for human resources, the globalization of companies in the 21st century has meant that HR must now adapt to new ways of providing benefits to an organization's employees. Non-traditional benefits such as flexible working hours, paternity leave, extended vacation time, and telecommuting are ways to motivate existing employees and to attract and retain new skilled employees. Balancing compensation and benefits for the organization workforce is an important HR function because it requires sensitivity to the wants and needs of a diverse group of people. Ensuring legal compliance. Ensuring legal compliance with labor and tax law is a vital part of ensuring the organization's continued existence. The home country government as well as the local government where the business operates impose mandates on the company regarding the working hours of employees, tax allowances, required break time and working hours, minimum wages amount, and policies on discrimination. This task becomes very much more complex when different laws in different countries need to be taken into account as well. Being aware of these laws and policies and working to keep the organization completely legal at all times is an essential role of human resources. Coming to the difference between HRM and IHRM, the next few slides are dedicated on this topic. The first difference we can see under IHRM, the issues in international HRM is to analyze what type of international HR strategy should be adopted so that it meets the requirements of the global business strategy. Whereas in case of HRM, domestic business, HR strategy should be adopted in accordance with the requirement of the firm's business strategy. The second, IHRM requires a much broader perspective, encompasses a greater scope of activities, is more complex, and is subject to much greater challenges than in case of domestic HRM. In case of domestic HRM, the scope is relatively narrow as compared to IHRM. The third difference in IHRM, issues relate to employees belonging to more than one nationality, thus requiring setting up different HR systems for different locations of the same business. Whereas in HRM, the issues relate to employees belonging to a single nationality. Thus, we see that there is less complexity in this case. Fourth, IHRM has to manage several external factors like government regulations of foreign country about staffing practices, whereas in case of domestic HRM, it has to deal with limited external factors. The next in IHRM requires greater involvement in the personal life of employees, such as helping in the admission of children in schools and supporting the family in adjusting to a foreign culture through cross-cultural training. In case of HRM, limited involvement of HR manager is there in the personal life of the employees as it is not required. In case of IHRM, there is increased exposure of risk such as health and safety of the employee and his and her family, terrorism, and human and financial consequences of mistakes committed in IHRM. Whereas in the case of HRM, we see that the risk is limited. Thus, from studying the difference between IHRM and HRM, we understand that IHRM is more complex than domestic HRM. Let us take an overview of the complexities that we face. Firstly, there are more HR activities than in domestic HRM. We have just discussed that in case of training, there is more different kinds of training like diversity training, language training, training for the family members. In the same way, in IHRM, we have to take care of several laws of both the country and align our activities accordingly. Also, we see that in case of compensation, we have to take into consideration the laws, rules, and regulations of the other country as well. Thus, we see that HR activities are more in case of IHRM. Second, the need for a broader perspective. Here, the perspective becomes larger because of involvement of more countries. The third, we see that more involvement of in employees' personal lives, like giving support to the family, the arranging for schooling of the children, or also arranging for the job of spouse. If the spouse has left the job in the home country and moved with the person, the expatriates, then we need to arrange that too. Next is changes in emphasis as the workforce mix of expatriate and locals may vary. The next complexity is the risk exposure, and the risk exposure that the person is exposed to are terrorism, also cross-cultural shocks. The last here is the broader external influences in case of IHRM, and in case of domestic HRM, we see that these influences, external influences, are limited. Thank you, and that's all for this lecture.